Hi guys, my name is Tatiana, lifeinglow Wellness, and in this video I want to share my thoughts on Saturn transiting Pisces. So Saturn is a planet which is moving into Pisces very soon on March 7th, 2023, and it will actually not retrograde back to Aquarius. This time it will go straight through Pisces till I believe it's 24th of May 2025, so roughly over 2 years. Usually Saturn stays in one sign for about 2.5 years, and the full cycle of Saturn is 29.5 years approximately. So if you are in your late 20s, especially around 28, 29, you are about to have Saturn return, which is probably the most important transit. Arguably, probably there are a few of them which are very crucial, but that's definitely one of the main ones in terms of changes in life. So also, if you're in your late 50s, you will have your Saturn return, and people who are in their 40s, mid 40s, I would say, or early 40s, they will go Saturn opposition. There are also Saturn squares. Anyways, like whatever transit of Saturn, especially harder aspects of Saturn, can bring some challenges and some opportunities as well. If you know your natal chart, where the Saturn is positioned there, then you can estimate whether it will be in a square, opposition, or conjunction. And for others, it might be in a sextile or trine. So take a look at your chart. If you don't know how to build your natal chart, check my video, How to Build Your Natal Chart. I will put the link in the description. To see the position of transiting Saturn towards your natal chart, first of all, it's good to build your natal chart, and also at AstroDeans, for example, you can overlay transits on the natal chart, and that way you can see both the natal and transits, and it can give you an idea in which house and where exactly Saturn is transiting. Since it's quite a long transit, there's quite a bit of things which happen. For example, if you have a planet in Pisces or Virgo, which is opposite Pisces, or in other mutable signs like Gemini and Sagittarius, Saturn will make harder aspects to them, conjunction, opposition, or a square. You can even calculate, if you want, the time if you check ephemerides. So if you know the position of your natal planet, well, let's say you have Mars at 2 degrees of Pisces. So basically Saturn, as soon as it enters Pisces in March, it will already start making and applying aspect to your natal Mars, and you would already feel it, or if you have a moon or any other planet there in the beginning of the sign. I highly recommend you to have a consultation with me or any other astrologer of your choice, because it always helps to dive deeper and understand how certain transits will affect you. For those who don't know me, I am a Western astrologer. I work with natal, locational, and horary astrology mainly, also some timing and other types of astrology. But my specialty is locational astrology at the moment and natal astrology. I'm also a psychotherapist and a life coach, a counselor. I work with a few contemporary methods, and you can find information on this channel and on my website. If we talk about significations of Saturn, Saturn represents some kind of structure, responsibility, commitment, things which are more solid, predictable, and in a way rigid as well in some cases. Ironically, it's a planet which is quite big, and it consists of gas mainly, but somehow in astrology it's associated with the most structural archetype, if I can say so. So I have a video as well on significations of planets. Feel free to watch it. I also have short videos about each planet with some more information, so check them as well. Saturn also is associated with some kind of fears, something which holds you back, although at the same time it can be something which makes you more devoted to a certain project or goal, and also it can help you to break through some kind of inner resistance. So there's always, you know, this double-sided coin, as in any case with archetypes, and we're going to talk a bit more about different influences of Saturn when we go through each house. So Pisces, on the opposite, is something which is associated with, you know, Neptunian energy, because Neptune is significator of Pisces and 12th house, whereas Saturn is significator of 10th house and Capricorn. So Saturn was in Capricorn in 2020-21, and in Capricorn and in Aquarius, Saturn is very strong. It rules those signs, and so it feels at home there, and kind of is compelled to do a lot of work and also to see some very tangible results, especially if Saturn is in Capricorn. Now in Aquarius, where it's finishing its cycle now, it was more about some kind of humanitarian matters, business on a very big scale, perhaps some changes related to rules, you know, some kind of laws in general, which are for the whole humanity. And it can also be about business networking and things like that. So what we saw a lot is that businesses have been forced in a way by circumstances because of the quarantine to either go online or even close in some cases, or be restructured in some way. That was partially also because there was a really big stellium in Capricorn for quite a long time, and you know, kind of cutting some things off and breaking down things to the bottom, you know, with the Pluto effort, and then rebuilding something which is more durable. In Aquarius, Saturn was somewhat, you know, flavored, I would say, by transiting Jupiter as well. So Jupiter, in a way, could not fully express its own, you know, goals in Aquarius because, well, in a way, Jupiter in Aquarius separately without Saturn in Aquarius would be a different story than Saturn. Anyways, I just got off topic a little bit, but let's go back to Saturn in Pisces. So basically, Saturn is coming from Capricorn and Aquarius, where it is given some kind of, you know, opportunities to do things the way it wants, whereas in Pisces, things feel so unlimited and so hard to grasp, because Pisces is like an ocean, you know, it's impossible to grasp, it's impossible to discover fully, because there's always something in the dark, something in the deep, and something which is not possible to hold, you know. Saturn also, by the way, represents, you know, skin, signifies skin and spine, so it's very related to body as well. And Pisces is related to medical field, to places of isolation, to some kind of spiritual enlightenment, and at the same time also there could be some subconscious blockages associated with the 12th house and Pisces. And it's basically this never-ending, you know, urge for some kind of meaning and desire to make sense of things, not only in the logical and analytical way, but more in the spiritual, so that it feels good, so that it feels as if you are connected to the universe and to your own inner universe as well. So Neptune in Pisces, which is gonna stay there still for a few years, it promotes, it even amplifies Pisces energies for us, because in its own place there, right? And when Jupiter was in Pisces, it only amplified all that. I would say that when we had Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, there was such a huge, turmoil and, all these expectations about something magical is going to happen, either magic cure or whatever. And I did not make a video on that because I don't specialize in forecasts specifically. It's just a lot of work for me. I cannot handle it. But I've read and I've listened to a few forecasts, and I kind of was actually skeptical because I thought, well, it feels like the whole world is speculating on that idea of possible magic, or this magic button, magic peel, which can happen. But we were building that anticipation, and pretty much nothing happened. So that's just my personal perception. Apart from maybe viruses subsiding a little bit, still it feels that when Jupiter and Neptune is in Pisces together, yes, it is an explosion of creativity and some kind of desire to be more than you are, more than the world in a way, but from a spiritual perspective, not necessarily egoistic perspective. Whereas when Saturn moves into Pisces, it tells that, okay, so now things are real, they have to be more real, but they feel unreal. And so this inner conflict of how to make your dreams the reality, how to make unreal real, and also maybe how to let go of something which is just too unachievable, like too hard to grasp, it's slipping away. So that, I feel, can be actual for many people during that transit. So which can set some kind of frustrations. I've done so much work already to reach that goal, to be there, but it's still not there. And so now I am facing either doing more work, but I'm already burned out and exhausted, or letting go of it. So the solution here could be to look more realistically of what is possible and what is impossible, and at the same time not to limit yourself with being super skeptical, feeling low in your moods. So not to fall into depression and self-criticism, but rather be a more adult, I would say, in your estimation of the dreams. And if you really mean it, then go and do something about it. What can we expect collectively in general? It's really a lot of things. So I would say that themes related to long distance travel and some kind of medical system regulations, maybe some kind of borders, they will be restructured, I would assume. And I think that process already started earlier when Saturn was in Capricorn and Aquarius. So this will continue. Perhaps, for example, people who are used to nomadic lifestyle, digital nomads, and in general people related to traveling. So maybe for you there could be some kind of changes with visa applications and things like that. I would also expect some kind of humanitarian organizations coming up front and being very strict about some things, and maybe asking for some fairness and possibly certain restrictions in the medical sphere. I hope we will not get more, injections and things like that, but you never know. It can happen both ways, I think. So on the one hand, some things might be, let's say if there was a law which just wasn't really approved for something, it can be approved, but there could be still some restrictions. That's how I see it, at least. So like, it's just not good enough yet. It's not what we want it to be. Now also Saturn in Pisces, I think, might be putting more people in the position of spiritual gurus, but this would be more on the business side. I would expect more people to appear with, trying to help to find a solution. And here I would really be careful with some gurus, because in general, it's very easy to be, to slide into some kind of dreamland and believe in a certain myth or magic pill, magic button, but in reality, results come often from something which you combine both your talents with a lot of work in many cases, and also smart choices. So estimating things, what is healthy to you. So I would look at that first thing. Like when someone is recommending something, you can ask yourself, is this what I believe in? And because in a way, Saturn in Pisces wants to be also of use and of help, but it just is not very comfortable in that huge ocean of information and demands. It feels like there are way too more responsibilities on me than I can handle, and so it's very prone to burning out and not estimating things in the right way. And I talk about Saturn, but in a way I talk about all of us, so we all can go through those things. Now, in terms of good sides, maybe I would say that Saturn in Pisces can help some creative people become a bit more business-oriented in a good way. So that, for example, if you want to monetize your talent and if you want to learn business skills, that's probably a good time, because you can feel the need of some kind of better structure, rather than having things only spontaneously, without being able to predict things a few months ahead. If you live in an expensive city especially, you have to make sure you earn enough money to support yourself. So with Saturn in Pisces, people who are connected to 12th house professions or Piscean professions, they might maybe, if you don't lose that hobby or business or something which is important to you, maybe you will implement some good changes and that will help you to bring it to another level. I hope so. At least I want to choose to hope this way. Another thing which I think it can be used for is for learning a string instrument or something which is still. So because Saturn is necessary for learning things like painting, drawing, music, even sound design, light design. So these all are more like creative activities, but to be good at that, you have to put a lot of effort to improve your skills and to develop your own style, something which requires Saturnian qualities. So I think that can be good as well. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if some businesses related to wellness will go out of service, unfortunately, with Saturn in Pisces, because it might just bring some things, to a stage where it's just hard to handle it. So this would be your decision, and I hope you'll make it in a good way. Now, also, I would say that Saturn can influence property abroad and also some kind of long distance shipping. Let's say if you do this, it's popular now, Amazon drop shipping or whatever. So I would expect that there could be delays with shipping, or if people put money in property, because Saturn is a significant of property as well, then I would also think that it's necessary. I think it's necessary to really be careful with some kind of deals, because there could be some information which you don't see, that something which is invisible, because Pisces is something which is hidden, something which is not on the surface. Something came up to me now that maybe looking at investments, something which is more on the spiritual side, would make more sense, you know. So now let's go over Saturn transiting a certain house in your chart. And this is just a brief, you know, description. I would not jump at conclusions right away. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's totally fine. And again, like, I haven't learned it from someone. It's just more over my perspective on combining significations of Saturn with Pisces. I don't remember myself consciously living and analyzing the period of time when I was in that. So guys, what I'm going to offer you now is to look at what house Saturn is transiting in your chart, and I will describe briefly some kind of themes which might be actual for you. Again, like, take it or leave it. So this is not the last truth. You know, everyone lives their own life and all charts are different. It's really difficult to do those types of videos, in my opinion. I don't like generalizing. I prefer looking at a concrete chart of a person, but we will just pinpoint some themes. And even if Saturn is not transiting that house, but it will resonate with you, that's okay. It's even better. So I encourage you to listen about all houses, because something might resonate with you, especially if you're in a relocated place. And in general, you know, it might just spark some idea or resonate somehow. Saturn in the first house could make someone feel more, you know, apt to do things, more responsible, and maybe even more ready to commit to some things, like kind of they need to be a grown up. And in some cases it's a forced, like something is forcing you to become more mature, more adult, and that way you can get to another level with an effort. So it's not like overnight something changes and you become, you know, successful. No, Saturn requires a lot of work and patience. And so for you, when Saturn in Pisces, you might have some kind of themes that, you know, I'm ready to go there, but at the same time, I just don't have enough energy. So even something like that, especially now when Mars is squaring Pisces, people might feel some kind of burnout, you know, because there are lots of layers in astrology. You know, it's not just Saturn transiting your house. There might be some other things happening too. But essentially, I think it's this inner conflict between, I want to be successful, I want to be consistent, because Saturn is consistency as well, but something in me is just not able to handle it, because I have also the need to be in the flow, you know, to be more spontaneous, not necessarily like whimsical, but more like, you know, relaxed and enjoying life, even in a way, like connection with nature and human beings. But Saturn here, like behind your shoulder, reminds you, well, there's work to be done, and it's not yet time to have a vacation, it's not time to relax. Yeah, so something like that. I would also take a notice of your health, and especially something related to skin and spine as well, similar to if Saturn is transiting your 6th house, for example. And if you have any allergic reactions or some kind of psychosomatic reactions, so go and deal with it. Take a session or a few sessions from a counselor. I work with a few methods, so I'd be happy to collaborate with you. You can find information about my services on my website, and I will put links under the video. So deal with it, and it can help you to go through this cycle easier, because it's a long transit, and most likely, say if you have your ascendant in the beginning of Pisces, Saturn will be transiting mainly in your 1st house probably, and then go into the 2nd house, depending on what house system we take. But yeah, so it's 2.5 years, and still a long time. So when Saturn is in the 1st house, it can be the time also to cut on some addictions. And so if you have that problem. So look into this and deal with it, because this can bring those issues as well. If Saturn is transiting your first house in Pisces, I would also use some kind of healings, like crystal healings on the body. Saturn in the first house can give more responsibility and feeling that things are possible to achieve if I just do a little bit more effort, or maybe a lot of more effort. But at the same time, because it's prone to mood changes, and I would say some kind of apathy, maybe some of you will feel that this just feels never achievable, and so you might feel to drop it. Now, what I suggest for Saturn in Pisces in the first house actually is to engage with some kind of music. Saturn transiting second house in Pisces can bring the questions of your finances, of course. Second and eighth house is financial access. So basically, look at how you earn money and what is working, what is not working. So Saturn in the second house is connected with the financial access, and basically it's looking into how you earn income, how you value yourself, how you use your time. And Saturn is a planet related to time. It signifies history and fragments of time, you know. And so look at your resources, how you spend your day, you know, where you waste your time. So keep track of what you're doing. That can help you to understand where the loose ends are and what has to be changed to improve the situation. Now, if you have a lot of debt, Saturn in Pisces can also kind of force you to deal with it. I'm not saying it's very easy to deal with, because Saturn is not comfortable in Pisces. It's more of a, you know, frustration energy and panicking in a way. However, the main thing here is not to give up and just make a good plan and try to do small steps to achieve a big dream. Saturn in the third house, and it's also partially related to other houses, is about communication, where your energy goes, you know, like how you relax as well. And basically it might mean also cutting off some connections. And so look at who is toxic in your life, like what kind of toxicity you have and where it comes from. Does it come from social media, whether your own reactions or other people's reactions? Does it come from communication, your relatives, maybe siblings or colleagues? And there could be some kind of also desire to help your relative or whatever signifies the person who is associated with the third house. And in these cases also it's important to balance how much you can give, how much you take, you know, like is it within your capacity what you're promising or not. Also, fine print is important. If you are signing a contract for work, then take a look at the fine print, at what is maybe like some kind of things which are not visible at the first glance. Also, Saturn in the third house can be good, I think, for learning something related to Pisces and creativity, maybe spontaneous writing or something like that. So I would give it a try and make it in a disciplined way if to look for some kind of remediations. Could be good also for public speaking. You would have to overcome your own fears of public speaking, most likely. But give yourself a chance, you know, and just make a plan and give it a try. In the third house, I would also encourage to look at different fears related to activities of the third house. Like, say, if you're afraid of writing or speaking, maybe it's time to deal with this fear. If you were trying to learn some kind of ukulele like me, you know, or painting, maybe it's time to be really consistent and diligent about that and not just talk about this dream, you know, but it's actually putting every day some kind of little effort into it, not just watching videos. Saturn in the third house also can be related to business trips, you know, overseas. So there could be some kind of, you know, difficult things with that as well, but at the same time, maybe it can bring some opportunities. Saturn in the fourth in Pisces, I would assume, can bring also some kind of psychosomatic related things, you know, something about security, feeling at ease with someone. It's related also to the third house, I think, to some extent. Basically, you need to look into what is limiting you from inside and outside, and also what is possible, but you are limiting yourself. So it's kind of similar things, I think. I worded it in a different way, but what I mean is that, again, psychotherapy is a good thing here, life coaching, and establishing some kind of self-support system. So you don't only depend on other people, but you give support to yourself as well. So if there are any codependency in domestic relationship, I think it's a good time to start dealing with them, or in some cases to cut off some relationships because they are just not serving you in a good way. Maybe there is some kind of toxicity, addictions, or something like that. Saturn in the fourth in Pisces could bring a move to a faraway country. It just depends on the whole chart which you have. So whether it's a good decision for you or not, I think it's better to consult the astrologer. Also, Saturn in the fourth, as in the third house, can bring question of documents, you know, something like you might have to remake documents, or maybe there are difficulties with documents, something is missing or has to be remade because there was a slip or something like that. So basically, because Neptune and, you know, 12 houses, if can be loss, or in some cases even flood to some extent. With Pisces, with Saturn in Pisces, you might have difficulty from some kind of water related things. Saturn in the Pisces in the fifth house can kind of also bring those contradictions towards kids and your creative projects. So for example, you feel strict on the one hand, and then on the other hand, there's this you know, desire to find something which is more, you know, flowing and unlimited. So I would say that so it's not the easiest house in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but intuitively I think that Saturn in the fifth in Pisces, I mean, again, like it could be a business project which is somewhere far away, but I would encourage you to have a solid business plan and try to keep an eye on details as well. So it might not allow you to fly away into your dreamland, you know, and hope that things will be good. So it will require some effort. Having Saturn in Pisces in your fifth house can also be probably used for some kind of retreat organization. We will see if it will boost this trend, but I think people now are craving for some in-person communications, and who knows, maybe we will have more organizers committing to this kind of activity. Also, things related to school can be in question, and maybe more schools which are far away, like I'm not saying only online, but basically some kind of opportunities to get a certificate, I guess. Fifth house is related to schools, creativity, kids, sexuality. I think that it's not the easiest house for Saturn to be transiting, and actually in my chart it's transiting in the fifth house natally. I would say that it's a little bit of a struggle between whether I should keep it as a hobby or I should make a business out of it. Those questions can come up, and maybe also dealing with and not being able to let go of your kids if you have kids, but at the same time they're already getting older, and some kind of as with a few other houses, questions of personal borders can come up. So keep an eye on these topics. When Saturn transits your 6th house in Pisces, I would expect some topics of, again, like communication coming up, whether it's healthy for you or not to be in, a business communication with someone. And I would also see who and what in your, life does not serve your health. Maybe you're eating something a lot, which is not really a good idea, and maybe you are too strict with diets, and then it needs to be changed. I'm telling this more from the perspective that Pisces is subconscious, and I believe that 6th, 2nd, and 4th houses are related to nutrition, in my opinion. And so our habits, our daily routines, they do matter, and that could be a good time to establish some kind of spiritual routine, maybe meditating on a regular basis more consistently, crystals, using crystal healing, meditating with crystals, I think could be good. For 6th house, I would also use crystal body layouts in terms of healing. Take a notice of your skin, any psychosomatic reactions, again, that's important. It can also probably be a position when you have some kind of business connections overseas related to work, or maybe you hire someone who lives overseas. Again, like guys, whether it's a good thing for you or not, like it really depends on many factors. So I'm not giving any advice here, just voicing some things. Saturn in the 7th house in Pisces might not be very easy, in my opinion, as well. Again, like I would look into some kind of collaborations, adding some structure to your, maybe even good agreements. Look into some kind of, finite details and agreements, and what needs to be trimmed, in your relationship, and what is too unstructured, and also what requires a bit more structure. Maybe adding some kind of more clear borders, personal borders as well. So could bring some business collaborations with creatives and intuitive people. So let me know, guys, if your Saturn is transiting in Pisces, your 7th house. Let me know how it was for you. I would be interested to know how it can play out. Saturn in the 8th house in Pisces can bring some questions over some kind of inheritance, whether it's a money missing, which belongs to other people, or something which delays some kind of inheritance. It can activate as well overseas relationships, especially business relationships. 8th house is related to sexuality as well as the 5th house, and it can bring some kind of tense moments, because you want to be in the flow, you want to use subconscious more and dive deeper, but Saturn tells you no, it's scary, it's not the time yet, it's a huge ocean, let's just first build a boat. So in this case, I would suggest is that just do things maybe step by step. Again, like have some kind of plan rather than only relying on your, intuition and subconscious, because you might be prone to stopping yourself from some things, just thinking of them too bad. Or on the other hand, it can be prone, I think, to cutting off some connections and also money relationships, because they just feel not spiritual enough. So I would assume that that can happen too. I would be very careful with this position also with taking credit and as well as second house, because, you know, I think Saturn in Pisces does not really allow us to see as clearly as in some other signs, and it might be either putting too much you know, emotions into something, or people can be prone to either being too, you know, cold thinking about something, trying to estimate things logically, whereas here it's important, I think, to put in tune your intuition and your logic so that they don't go too much separately. Maybe if you say are planning a business or something, you can consult both an intuitive consultant and at the same time have a good solid plan, like to really estimate both sides, not just one. Saturn transiting the 9th house in Pisces can bring a move, I think, and it might be connected with some kind of documents and possibly with a delay as well, or you know, having some things, or like having to sacrifice something, because you realize that to achieve your dream, you cannot bring your old life into the new, and so this can kind of demand from you some rewiring yourself, restructuring in a way your beliefs to some extent, so that it can be attuned with your desires and your dreams. Kind of similar to the 11th house, I think, as well in some way. Here also I would stay away too much plunging into different types of guru speeches, you know, and topics. What I mean is that you yourself can be maybe even developing in that direction, but be careful in absorbing other people's you know, beliefs and concepts. It can be difficult in a way to separate your own concepts, you know, perception from what is imposed on you from society, from some authoritative figure. I think Saturn in the 4th, in the 8th, and in the 9th can bring up the desire to be connected to property near the sea. It's just my personal opinion, but it depends on a certain case, like whether it's a good idea or not. Saturn in the 10th house it's actually quite an unusual combination, I would say. I would expect that some kind of conflict with the boss in your company, or maybe you will have to stay, you know, working more hours without being paid for that properly. So you would be expected to overwork. So somehow that what I would associate with that. Also, Saturn in the 10th can bring up questions related to your parents. According to some systems in astrology, 10th house can signify your mom or a parent who influenced your career choice. You could take things more seriously about work, but at the same time feeling that it's just hard to handle all work responsibilities. So that's just my take on that. So maybe your experience will be different. It's, I guess, in this case, it's good as in terms of 6th house as well, to find some kind of healthy workflow so that you don't get into, you know, burnout and things like that, and you're not used for some other people's goals. Saturn in the 11th house can activate, you know, topics of whether I'm going in the right direction. So is this the right dream for me? Similar to Saturn in the 10th, I think. And it can also be a situation when maybe someone in a status position will help you in some way, because they have some more of something which you don't have, or out of responsibility. People who are into arts, in dancing, you might maybe you will organize some kind of community, whether online or in person, but basically 11th house is community. And so transiting Saturn in Pisces there can be good for some kind of charity work or some kind of spiritual activity, and creating something tangible for others as well. In some cases, I think this position can be good for grants, maybe even as the 8th house. Only 8th house is a bit more unpredictable, I would assume, whether you will get it or not. It can bring a delay as well. 11th house, I would think that connecting to an association of some Neptunian activity could be probably good for you in some way, hopefully. If Saturn is transiting your 12th house in Pisces, I would highly recommend to work with a life coach and with a therapist, because it can help you to get rid of what is unnecessary, what is not serving you anymore, and limiting beliefs, similarly to the 1st house as well, the 3rd house too. And also, as for the 11th house, 12th house can be related to humanitarian matters, to charity. So look at what am I doing in this world for others. Maybe also you can work with people. Saturn in the 12th and 6th house also can be about working with some kind of elderly people. Maybe it's a hospice or mental house or some kind of isolated organization. So that could be also one of the reasons. Also, in some cases, dogs, sick dogs, for example, especially if there is a connection with Moon. Saturn in the 12th house can bring immigration, especially the one which is far away, overseas. But it also can have some kind of obstacles and delays in immigrating. So I would say spirituality, meditating, and different alternative healing could be helpful here to go for this process. So let me know in the comments, guys, what house Saturn is transiting for you, and I look forward to reading them and answer as many comments as I can. Like this video, subscribe to this channel if you're not subscribed yet, and share it with someone who might benefit from it. And I'll talk to you soon in another video. Stay well. I'm telling what comes to me in the flow. I'm not sure if it's right or wrong.